حلمنا نسخي حلم ورورتك عنكوتانا سخي نايما يتعامتك هلاوينا عب هلاوي خيوز مركوس عدنا مزاينا بآخيوز غلس.
Good evening and welcome on Embassy Media on the occasion of International Women's Day. Allow me to introduce you Ms. Ruby Sandhu, a senior lawyer, meditator, but more importantly, Ruby has been with us on Eritrea journey for the last 10 years. Ruby's initial inquiry was as a partner of a law firm on the Eritrean rehabilitation diaspora tax. She left the law firm and continued with her inquiry as the vice chair of the Solicitors International Human Rights Group. There, she authored a paper as a result of her inquiry titled Eritrea Through the Lens of National Building, Business Ethics, and Sustainability. And she says this is really where her journey started. She has organized and spoken at a number of panels, including the Atlantic Council, side events at the UN, Chatham House, all-party parliamentary groups, and universities. She is passionate about and progressive approach to politics, and particularly within the context of sustainability and climate change. I'm really honored and happy to have you here on Embassy Media. Thank you, Ruby, for your time. Thank you for being with us here on Embassy Media.
Absolutely delighted to be here, Yared, and welcome to my living room. This is the context of COVID, so delighted to be here, and I'm so glad that you're organising and continuing the media, even though these are difficult times.
Thank you, yes. We are doing this interview on the occasion of the International Women's Day under the theme Eritrean Women Pillar of the Resilience and Development. Ruby, your experience of Eritrea, how was it? Can you please share with us?
Oh my goodness, a real journey of the heart. I mean, obviously I started the inquiry as a lawyer, and the inquiry in my journey was quite prescriptive at that point. It was looking at sort of international conventions, laws, and seeing, whether Eritrea sort of almost a tick box exercise. But the journey really began when I left the law firm and started my own inquiry out of my own sort of mandate. And when I visited Eritrea, I think it was really a complete sort of 360-degree turnaround to a space, a point, which was completely diametrically opposite to what the media had portrayed Eritrea as. And it was a very humbling journey, particularly humbling because I just completed a postgrad in sustainability and responsible business. We were aware of climate change. We knew that narrative hadn't entered the legal profession. And I was incredibly humbled when I went to Eritrea and just saw the sort of grassroots, community and organization and the evolved approach to development, and humbled by the ministers who gave so much of their time and responded not only to my inquiry. I saw, many people go in after me or before me, meetings after meetings. I was just so impressed, really humbled and incredibly impressed.
Absolutely. Ruby, your heritage is Indian. How important is the empowerment of women, and compare that your experience of Eritrea?
It's a really good question, Yared. My formative years were in India, and actually I was born here, and then I was sent to be brought up by my grandparents, because obviously my parents came here during the first wave in the late 60s of the Indian sort of generation that provided the sort of backbone and the infrastructure of development for this country. I returned back, but obviously I knew the language, and those were my formative years. So that never left me, and it didn't need to, because indigenous learnings, wherever we are from, whichever part of the world, are really important because they're all similar. How to live, simply, honestly, and, having the grandparents' wisdom at the time, which is no different to the indigenous wisdom here in the West or any other part or in Africa. And so that really formed my sort of backbone. And I never felt any discomfort with, me being, very strong and patriotic as a British citizen, but also felt a very strong responsibility of me as a Brit. And, what had been done in the past, but what I had as a British citizen to respond to and ensure that we weren't sort of rehashing sort of games of old, as I said. And I certainly saw that, when I look at the Eritrean, the young children coming over or the Indians coming over, there's a real need to fit into sort of modernity. Modernity isn't sort of westernization. Modernity is consumerism, it's a capitalist structure. It is not patriotic to any country. It's just consumption. It's very superficial. It's owned mainly by corporates. And I think it's really important to have some form of identity beyond modernity, but everybody keeps thinking that modernity is the Western world. It is an aspect of the Western world. Every Western country has an indigenous culture that we need to go back to.
Yeah.
And forgive me, I don't think I answered your question, so please do forgive me if I haven't.
No, you did actually. I mean, I know that there is a lot of similarity between India and Eritrea. We had these discussions before. Ruby, what's important to you and why?
I think what I'm really passionate about is we're entering difficult times. Obviously, we're experiencing that with COVID. It's been extraordinarily difficult for a lot of people in the world. And what I'm passionate about is we need different voices at the table. We need more voices. We need a diversity. And it's not the physical diversity. It's the diversity of thought, opinion, background. They need to be present. And so at International Women's Day, absolutely important to have women, but I'm really, one thing that's really paramount is we don't want women who are just thinking like the same system. There's no point of that. That's a superficial, ticking the box of diversity. We need real diversity of thought and opinion, and we need to be comfortable with this diversity of different opinions.
Let me be a little bit more clear. Why is gender empowerment important, Ruby? What's your take on that?
It's interesting. If anyone had called me a feminist, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, I would have, the way it would have been said would have been as an insult. But I think beyond the terminology of what is feminist, to answer your question, Yared, about why is it important, women represent, at least 52% of the, world population, and they need representation. And it can be as simple as seatbelts that are designed for women and not just men. It could be as simple as, more women voices in, corporate boards. So there's diversity of opinion. Yeah. There is not representation, and we really need that representation. And it's really important because we have another way of being and seeing things, not only from our physiology, but from many, many other aspects. And that needs to be included in the system.
Ruby, what would you like to see happen in, I know you don't like this developing countries, but what would you like to see happen in developing countries and around gender empowerment?
So what I've seen, and I, again, was really, enamored by was the way the National Union of Eritrean Women, feisty women, ex-fighters, incredibly incredibly passionate about the work they were doing, incredibly humble and hardworking. A groundswell, a grassroots organization. And I'll never forget when I met, the chair and the head of the NUEW, and she said, you know what, we get things done. And if there's any problem, we've got a direct call to the president. And I went, this is amazing. They cared passionately about addressing inequality, injustice, women's empowerment. I later met, completely by accident, I was with a delegation from the ILO, and we were in the Gashbarka region, and we were sitting and chatting one evening over coffee, and I met somebody who was working at the mine there. And I asked this young woman what was her journey, and she said, I am so grateful to the NUEW. I live in a little village. I was encouraged, there were cultural norms, etc., but I was encouraged to study. I was encouraged to speak up. I was just so impressed. We're talking about, the remotest villages where, and that's real empowerment, because it's not just about those who have money or access to education. Real empowerment is including everyone. And as the SDGs say, leaving nobody behind. So I'm so impressed with the NUEW, and also meeting with, the Minister of Justice. I just absolutely impressed. These women are extraordinary.
Absolutely. I mean, Ruby, this interview that we are doing it here on Embassy Media is on the occasion of International Women's Day. Eritrean women are the pillars of resilience and development. That's the theme of this year. What does International Women's Day mean to you?
I think it's a good start with respect to really allowing a space, a day where all these ideas and thoughts can come together, where women from anywhere in the world can really bring their voices, allow that to be heard. Certainly what I learned about the Eritrean women is that they fought in the trenches with the men, and absolutely were they going to die hard, about having a voice at the table and, government. And I see a real egalitarian and equality with regards to the way these women are, and the way they're, represented, and the way they're confident. There's an unsaid confidence that I just really admired. So I think the importance of International Women's Day and globally is fantastic, because it allows another form of groundswell internationally, where we're all learning about best practices from each other, and not for a minute thinking that one country has the answer. We certainly don't. We've got a lot of problems here in terms of diversity of opinion, thought. We've certainly seen it with our press, and the lack of leadership, or senior women at board level, lack of mentorship, glass ceilings. We have all those problems. So when, we're certainly not, we can't hold our head up high and say we've got it worked out, but we can learn. And I think that's really important about International Women's Day, is that it is a groundswell of women from all over the world where we can really, really support each other.
This occasion, what do you think young women need to be considered from all your experiences, Ruby?
Really great question. I've often said that when I'm mentoring. So in my early 50s now, I've said to, what would I say to my younger self, and what do I say to my young mentees? First and foremost is you really need to know your history, whether it's your Indigenous history, your roots, where are you from? Because at the moment we're going through a mass amount of homogenization, which I call, modernity, and it's not healthy. Because there's so much wisdom in our Indigenous roots and our system and our heritage. And we need to know that, because we need to unearth that wisdom and bring it forward. How we used to live off the land, how we lived simply, how there was, how we dealt with justice. We need to bring that forward and bring it to a new level. And that's really, really, critical and important. The other thing I would say is speak up. Absolutely, women need to speak up and seek others, seek mentorship, ask for help, really learn how to ask for help. And I think speaking up, and speaking up comes from having confidence, because one of the things through many studies, including Harvard studies, it's shown that women always we're never enough. We never feel enough. It doesn't matter how far we're educated. We never feel enough, and we need to stop that negative belief. We are enough, and if you start from that space and then start thinking, okay, what do I really care about, and how do I want to bring this out into the world? We need women not only to break the barriers in the current system, but we need we need new thinkers, we need change agents, we need tempered radicals, we need women, but we need to do it with wisdom, insight, and really importantly, not to polarize debates, but to try and bring all our wisdom, mediation and conflict resolution, to try and find different ways of being. But certainly we need to bring that, and I think we really need to nurture younger women. But also, advice I'd say to young mothers now is, please be aware that you're not rehashing the old ways of bringing up your sons. Give them the confidence to be men, as well as bringing in their softer and their feminine side, because of course we're masculine and feminine, we have both those aspects, but we really need to empower these young men that it's okay. We don't have to have this bullish man, we don't have to have this sort of linear thinking. We need a man who's holistic thinking. So you need to bring up your sons, one, to respect women, and secondly, really to understand themselves and really be whole in themselves. We need really evolved motherhood. We really do need evolved mothers now.
But how can men empower women, Ruby?
How can men empower women? Women are empowered. But I think what's really important is to give space to this different form of thinking, to allow women to speak, to create spaces and structures that allow a woman's voice to be heard, and to allow that different form of thinking, to provide investment and capital for women's projects and initiatives, to allow women to take leadership on projects, to provide the support and not to be afraid of having women leadership. That is all the ways that men can really empower and allow women to really be, because women are naturally empowered. We've had to go through a lot of difficulty to get where we are, and not only cultural conditioning, etc. And so women are tough, we're strong. What we need is space, investment, resources, support. All of those are a good starting point.
Final word, Eritrean woman, pillar of resilience and development. Any final words on that, team?
I have some amazing sisters in the Eritrean community that I am completely enamored and honored to have met and to work with. They're selfless, they're passionate, they're patriotic. I'm just so grateful to them because it was their open heart, their willing to listen to, my conditioning or non-acceptance of other perspectives, and their patience and their wisdom. I have so much respect. So to all my Eritrean sisters, you really, really do inspire me, and to keep up the good work.
Ruby Sandhu, senior lawyer, meditator, thank you for having you here on Embassy Media, and I wish you all the best on your work, and hopefully we're gonna see you very soon after all this pandemic of this COVID-19. Thank you for having you here on Embassy Media.
Really looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Harry. Thank you.
Well, my guest speaker was Ruby Sandhu from London, and until our next program, stay safe, and until next episode, and good night.
زيتدقم تأمرتي فطري كم على الولاد رنقسي خبري عادي أنا بلك بزبر لبسي عدينا نملك اتمتايسي ما تنكي مرقي وبقدام اتمتايسي مرقاقي حيلنا يونباحلو اتمتايسي حلال ندخي على بيننا اتمتايسي هاجرنا ومرعات عيننا عدينا نملك بزبر خدمتي عدينا نملك